My text is Malachi chapter 3 verse 3. He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. This verse puzzled some women in a Bible study, and they wondered what this statement meant about the character and nature of God. One of the women offered to find out the process of refining silver and get back to them at their next Bible study. That week, the woman called a silversmith and made an appointment to watch him at work. She didn't mention anything about the reason for her interest. As she watched the silversmith, he held a piece of silver over the fire and let it heat up. He explained that in refining silver, one needed to hold the silver in the middle of the fire where the flames were hottest as to burn away all the impurities. The woman thought about God holding us in such a hot spot. She asked the silversmith if it was true that he had to sit there in front of the fire the whole time the silver was being refined. The man said yes. He not only had to sit there holding the silver, but he had to keep his eye on the silver the entire time it was in the fire. If the silver was left a moment too long in the flames, it would be destroyed. The woman was silent for a moment. Then she asked the silversmith, "How do you know when the silver is fully refined?" He smiled at her and answered, "Oh, that's easy. When I see my image in it." Dear friends, very often we question God when we go through pain and suffering. We do not understand why God doesn't do something about our suffering. He seems to be turning a blind eye to our problems, though we repeatedly ask God to relieve us from our pain. But like the refiner, let us learn here that God is always beside us, and He does not take His eyes away from us. Sometimes He sends us through the hottest fires with a purpose, and that is to make us like Him, and finally He could see His image in us. In the book of Daniel chapter 3, we read the story of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. King Nebuchadnezzar wanted to punish them for not worshipping his God. He threw them into a burning fiery furnace, but they were not harmed. Further, there was a fourth person with them walking about in the fire, and that was our God. Remember that it is safer to stay in the furnace with God than outside it without God. C.C. Colton said, "It is not until we have passed through the furnace that we are made to know how much dross there was in our composition." Matthew Henry, the English preacher and author, said, "Good men, even when God frowns upon them, think well of Him." And William S. Plumer, the American lawyer and lay preacher, said, "Good men are often great sufferers." A vine dresser prunes his plants so that they yield a better harvest. In the same way, our divine vine dresser knows that unless He uses a sharp knife on us, He can never see His image on us. We may bleed for a while, but at the end we will say, "It was worthwhile." Someone has said, heated gold becomes an ornament. Beaten copper is made into wires. Depleted stone becomes a statue. So the more pain you go through in your life, the more valuable you become. I end with a statement of Charles Spurgeon, the great Baptist preacher of the 19th century. Come life, come death, come temptation, come poverty, come sickness, come failures, come whatever may from heaven or earth or hell, the Lord has promised that He will bear you through. And to summarize what we learned today, if today you are feeling the heat of the fire, remember that God has His eye on you and will keep watching you until He sees His image in you. May God bless you. Amen.